Now, more stories, insights, and analysis of Illinois policy and politics. This is Illinois Rising, presented by the Illinois Opportunity Project. Once again, your host, AM 560's Dan Proft.
Dan Proft back with Pat Hughes on this edition of Rising. And Pat, a couple of events this week. Mentioned the governor's budget address back on Wednesday. One of his proposals that he thinks is going to generate $1 billion in savings is pushing unfunded pension liabilities down to the local level, the school district level. They're conferred by the state, but now we're going to make the school districts come up with the money for them. And the hope, I guess, is that it would cause school districts to reform the benefits they offer. Otherwise, you're going to see some spikes in property taxes. Good grief. But they don't really have the authority in Rauner's proposal, school boards, to change the retirement packages that are being offered their employees. So you're getting the responsibility without the authority, and that doesn't quite work. Just as not having the responsibility for funding at the state level hasn't worked, but having collective bargaining agreements negotiated at the local level. So I agree with having the responsibility and the authority be in the same place with the same people, but that's still disconnect in what he's proposed.
Yeah, that's because he doesn't really care if this ever becomes a functioning law that would have to be effectuated by people at the local level and what impact that would have on property taxes and any expenditures related to the school systems. What he cares about is having a proposal that's not looked at closely enough that looks like he's trying to do some kind of reform in his very hotly contested primary and then, to his mind, in his general election.
Well, and associated with this, I mean, just in terms of looking at the size of some of these funds, the police and fire pension funds, we did a look at these, the story in the DuPage Policy Journal, one of my papers, 100 Illinois pension funds with the biggest taxpayer share. Places like Joliet Police Pension Fund, $17.3 million in revenue in 16 from taxpayers, $14.5 million of the 17. So it's north of 80%. Joliet Firefighters Pension Fund, $14.5 million, $12.3 million from taxpayers. Aurora, 15 and 11. That's the police pension fund. The firefighters, 11 and 9. 11 total, 9 from taxpayers. I mean, the numbers are daunting in terms of pension fund obligations eating up municipal budgets just as they're eating up the state budget, and you still can't keep up.
Yeah, and what's incredible is, Dan, you've seen the stock market just go crazy over the last year. Like, who? And I'm not an expert in this, but who's managing the money in these funds? Like, why are they not growing exponentially in this market environment so that you could then take away some of the taxpayers' the burden from the taxpayers? And then you wouldn't have the political problem of pushing more onto the actual beneficiary, even though it should be pushed more onto the actual beneficiary. But you'd have less of a problem because the fund would grow.
Yeah, but you can't make up the benefits conferred. Ted Dobrowski over at WirePoints released a study this week. We talked to him about it in my morning show. And he makes the points very succinctly. The growth in pension benefits accumulated by government workers and retirees. Total pension benefits grew over the last 30 years, between 87 and 2016. Total pension benefits grew by more than 1,000%. State general revenue grew by 236%. Median household income grew by 127%. Inflation, 111% in total. So you're talking about pension benefits growing at a 10x inflation, at almost 10x median household income growth, at 6x state general revenue growth.
Yeah, unless there's a pension ferry that's going to come down. And so what has to happen here, Dan, is there's an opportunity. There's an opportunity to go to these pensioners, whether it's the fire or the police, whether it's AFSCME, whether it's anybody, and say, look, to the younger people in particular, your money's not going to be there. You've been sold a bill of goods. We have to reform these things for you to get something. We have to change the nature of how this stuff is structured, or you're not going to get anywhere near what you're being promised. The people at the end of the system aren't going to care as much, but the people on the front end are going to care or should care if we can message to them correctly.
And just, compare Illinois to neighboring states. I mean, let's do a little bit of
I bet you we're worse.
Well, a little context here. State pension assets have grown multiple times faster than any other measure of the economy. total pension assets are up 644% or 7.2% annually since 1987. That's 5 times more than median household income growth, 6 times faster than inflation over the same period. So it's not really a lack of money. It's continuing to increase pension benefits that you just cannot afford. You cannot make the math work. I mean, pensions are already consuming 1 of every 4 general revenue fund dollars at present. Look, compared to other states, promised pension benefits in Illinois grew 7.5% per year between 2003 and 2015. Only New Jersey and New Hampshire experienced faster growth. Wisconsin, pension benefits grew by less than half of that, 3% annually. Indiana's by 5% annually over that same 12-year period. So,
by the way, those 3 and 5, those are still big numbers. Those are still big numbers.
Those are substantial, but it is. I mean, we can talk about skipping pension payments at the city level, right? And now, thanks to Rauner's bailout of CPS pensions, we're all on the hook for the $17 billion in unfunded Chicago public school pensions. But at the state level, this really is about conferring benefits at levels we just cannot afford. The money is not there, no matter how well the market performs. And that's the difficult conversation that nobody's willing to have with the kind of the great expanse of 13 million Illinoisans. But you can't catch up. All of the kind of the gimmickry or the marginal reforms, yes, eliminate the 3% COLA that compounds annually. That would help. That starts to bend the cost curve substantially. That's good, but it's not enough. You've got to do something with the benefit levels being conferred on a go-forward basis if you want to keep your promises now and into the future, and there's just no way around it.